The secrecy system, and I'm going to be very, very clear here, is not to be used to cover government illegality, wrongdoing, hiding, administrative inefficiency, ineffectiveness, or in fact, where the government's actually threatening public safety and health and safety, fraud, waste, and abuse. In my experience, the secrecy system has become so corrupted that it's now being used routinely to do precisely that, under the color and cover of law. And when the color and cover of law is no longer sufficient, then we'll just make up the rules. I have a son who's 17, extraordinary son. And we've had long conversations about what happened to me and what's happening in this country. He's only known this world we now inhabit, post 9/11. He knows no other world. Most of us in this room actually remember a pre-9/11 world. At a minimum, I'd like to return to 9/10. The price is way too high, way too high. Our younger generation will inherit what we leave behind. They're the future leaders of tomorrow, today. What legacy will we have them take? What legacy will we leave behind? So one of the fundamental principles of who you are as a human being, which is enshrined in the Constitution, is in the Fourth Amendment, that you are secure. And as much, and I've talked to not just my son, but other young people and people I work with that are in their 20s and early 30s somethings. I've asked them point blank, where do you draw the line? One of them told me recently, I draw the line at the shades of my window. Anything that I do behind those shades is private. That includes the use of his cell phone. That includes any other electronic media. He chooses what he will share that's public. And just because he's private does not give the government license to violate that privacy without due process, which includes probable cause through an affidavit that you have to bring forward in front of someone in an Article 3 court. That the Article 2 powers do not extend to simply subverting what is properly given to Article 3 in the Constitution. Privacy does matter. It's the essence of who we are as human beings. We don't have that, guess what? And so there's something at stake for all of us in terms of the commons. There's something at stake for all of us in terms of fundamentally what it means. It's not their choice, and it's not their right to then turn what is a right of ours into a privilege that they sanction, they control, that they monitor, and they dispense. That's precisely what's happening. And that's precisely a world that I do not want to leave behind for my 17-year-old or any other body in the younger generation or anybody of us. That's not what I took an oath to support and defend. And I say that with about as strong a conviction as I can possibly use in terms of the language. It's that important. It really is that important to who we are. There's this idea that, and I've heard this internally, I heard this when I was at NSA. If you're doing something in private, then you might be up to no good. And we need to have access to that. Did you know there is a plan right now in the Obama administration to provide the intelligence community, which is a misnomer, by the way, the intelligence establishment, access to any and all financial records? Any and all. What the heck is there left to defend? I mean, if you end up taking away the essence of everything there is about you because there might just be a 1% or a 0.01% chance that you're doing something wrong, what's happening? We're in this pre-crime space where anything is suspicious, that any and all data. I'm telling you, in my case, I was utterly framed. Not only was information mischaracterized, it was misrepresented and at times even doctored. What does that tell you? Because it's all done in secret. They're the ones holding it. You become a target of the government, right? Remember, I've been living this. I've lived this for 5 years. You become a target of the government. It's not a life I want any of you in this room to live, except for those of you who have in part lived it. Another thing to share with you, everybody, and I have not said this directly in this type of a form, but I'm going to say it here. Everybody that was associated with me, either because they used to work for me or had links to me or had ties to me, by mere association assembly, that freedom to do so under the First Amendment, were investigated, were interrogated. And some of those same people lost their jobs and their livelihood because of their association with me. Mere association meant they were guilty. And they were going to be punished because of that association. There's other things I can't even talk about because they're so personal and how far the government went to destroy my lives and others. Yet I stand here as a free person. Free. You know what freedom really means? When you're about to lose everything there is of who you are, that's when you realize what's most important. That's the oath I took. And the president is to preserve, protect, and defend. There's a special oath he takes written in the Constitution. You don't use the color and cover of that to engage in secret law, an interpretation of the law, and withhold what you say is legal from Congress. Congress is the only body that actually gets to legislate, right? Yeah, the president gets to sign into law, and you have the Supreme Court. We forget the foundations of our own country. I have some people, Tom, Constitution is outmoded. You don't understand. We live in a very different era. You know, founding fathers, they had their own contradictions. Yes, they did. Civil War's built into that. I know, I understand all of that. I've heard all those arguments. I used to hear them when I went through SEER training. The very program that was reverse engineered became the torture program. State-sponsored torture by this country. 54 countries minimum have cooperated. What does that tell you about who we are? I was flat out told, Tom, we're different. We're never going to do this because we're Americans. We're Americans. Oh, okay, we're Americans.